Well, hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the BlueGamer Bluecast morning show. I'm your host, Adam Blue, 30-plus year video game playing veteran. I changed that up a lot. I need to just stick with one title. But yeah, how's everyone doing this morning? It is Friday. Friday's usually good because, yeah, you don't have to worry about work the next day, I guess, depending on what you do. I know I don't have to wake up early to take kids to school or anything, and I can probably focus on more video games. That's what's good about the weekend. So, yeah, some news that has popped up be interesting to talk about. And, you know, on Friday, a lot of times we'll get news that drops later in the day. Usually, sometimes it's like bad news or news that they don't want, you know, to really get out there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens later on today. But yeah, before we jump into the news, a few things I got into yesterday gaming-wise. I didn't play too many games yesterday. I played a little bit more V-Rising. V-Rising is very well made because I get to a point where I feel like there's nothing I can do. This is too hard. I don't know how to move forward. But then there's always some path of leveling or grinding you can choose. It's like, oh, I can't do this yet, but I can do this to get this. Or and just as I'm playing, I'm figuring this stuff out. Makes V-Rising have very high replayability, I think, because there's always something to do. And when I feel like, yeah, I'm done, just in terms of, okay, this is one either getting hard and I don't really feel like doing the grind, because that's the thing. There is this kind of grind element to it. But sometimes then there's something else I can do instead of grinding, which helps. It's like, I don't feel like grinding, but at least I can do this, whether that's like doing some building or doing some hunting. I noticed yesterday when I was, there was this boss I couldn't beat, and I was kind of mad about that. And I was like, but it's okay. I shouldn't be able to beat every boss on the first try. So I went to kind of loot around the area that the boss is in, and I got so much loot that allowed me to kind of progress a little further with my upgrades and all that. So I like that. I like and I was upgrading things I didn't even realize I could upgrade. So I like that there's so much in V-Rising. It's pretty cool. Again, the combat, it's not my thing, but it's okay enough. And then in Castlevania, so something else I did that I do sometimes is if I'm just interested in a concept, I'll jump from game to game. So I took out Harmony of Dissonance, which I just beat again 3 times recently, and I used the Maxim code to get the alternate mode where I can play as Maxim. He's kind of just like the alternate character. He has a sword, and it's just like a Richter mode. And then in Portrait of Ruin on my 3DS, it's a DS game, but I have it on my 3DS. I then did the Richter mode for Portrait of Ruin, and the feeling of playing as Richter in Portrait of Ruin is, I've got to say, the best 2D feeling combat, side-scrolling combat ever. Just, yeah, he's a little faster than normal, and he has all these moves, but it made it so fun just to run around that map for as little as I did. I can't wait to do it more, but I'm going to take a break because by, going through these different things, it's like, okay, what do I want to focus on? Well, I'm probably going to switch between the Richter mode on Symphony of the Night and the Maxim mode on Harmony of Dissonance till I beat those before I do the others. Other than that, anything else I might be playing? Who knows what I might get into this weekend, actually. So another thing, and this is still Castlevania related, I go through phases, is I like to collect action figures, but there's not any good Castlevania action figures. There's NECA came out with some back in the 2000s, and I remember I had them pre-ordered. There was like 4 of them, and then at a certain point, that's when I was much younger, and at a certain point, I was like, I shouldn't be spending this money, so I, didn't buy them. But now they're like worth a lot, but they're not that great because they're older action figures, right? But they're still kind of cool. Like I kind of want them. But then for the new Netflix show, they came out with action figures, and I avoided them because they didn't look that great, but I got one anyway because I want to make a custom Richter Belmont. Now, this is Trevor. I wanted to make a custom Richter Belmont, and he comes with the Vampire Killer. So my thought was I would buy this, and this was cheap to get the whip, and I would look at the figure and see what I think, and honestly, it's horrible because I had trouble moving the leg up to here. And then when I looked, I saw that, and I don't know if it could show on camera. It's breaking in, it's cutting into the figure. So this is just not a woman, even the hand, like you can't move the arms down. And they go up okay, but that's not even as high as some could. So it's like so limited, but it looks like the anime. Wow, it's like really bright. Let me see if I can do something about that. Yeah, it looks like the anime, but it's just not a good figure, unfortunately. Anyway, I'm taking this, and I've got a whole lot of stuff coming in the mail to make a custom Richter Belmont. It is pretty sick. I'm using articulated icons for the body, and I bought some soft goods from Mezco to make the clothing that Richter Belmont has. And then I'm using a Karate Kid action figure that came out recently with Daniel LaRusso. Has the way his face is with his hair coming down over the white bandana. All I have to do is take off the writing on the white, and it will look exactly like Richter Belmont. It has 3 faces, different expressions, and it's gonna be perfect. I cannot wait to put this together. Okay, that's about it for I guess with me in gaming news. But let's jump into the real gaming news. What is going on today? Hades 2 first patch improves sprinting and gathering. So again, this is that thing again. Like this game is in early access, and I feel like early access and release is just the difference doesn't matter too much. I don't know, because even if you get into a game when it's first released, like this is the actual, what do they call it, Gone Gold release. Version 1, there's always improvements that are going to be made anyway. And we're seeing that with Hades 2. It's like the news is patches for games that are already still in development. So it's very interesting. Like, how far do you go when you post news on early access stuff? Again, maybe I'm missing something. For some reason, it's so weird to me that Hades 2 is early access. But I also think early access is good. But I also think it can hinder an experience because you're really just becoming part of the development process. And I brought this up before when I've played games that are early access and I played games when they're first release. And a lot of times they are very different. And, by then you might be done with the game. Or maybe you've appreciated a certain system and then it changes by its release. And it brings me back to Dead Cells. I remember its first early access release versus its final release. Just wasn't as interested. And I don't know if that's because they changed it enough to where it didn't feel like what I was used to, or maybe what they changed I didn't like. I don't know. I'm going to still think about it. When it comes up, things about early access come up, I still want to think about it. Valve's next game, a hero shooter called Deadlock, has seemingly leaked. So it's a game that has been in development since 2018. It's a hero shooter by Valve. Most likely this is going to be canceled. And why do I say that? I don't know. Because Valve doesn't come out with too many games. Also, 2018 is a time to think that you should come out with a hero shooter. But nowadays, no. Unless it's Valve doing a Valve thing, where they're going to do some hero shooters, maybe the way to describe the game, but the things they're doing in it are going to be very new, different, and interesting. Very curious, because I wonder how much Valve could focus on making a game that sells more Steam Decks. Not that they need to, I'm saying, but it's like, I don't think anyone gets a Steam Deck because there's a game only on Steam Deck. That's not really how it works. But Valve is in a position where they could do that. But again, I think Valve is in a position where most companies want to be in right now anyway, where they have their own little storefront, everyone's going to them. It's just, usually when these companies do this, they like to have content that's on there. And it's very interesting that Valve hasn't really focused on exclusive content. It's interesting stuff. Total War Star Wars is reportedly in development at Creative Assembly. I like Creative Assembly a lot. I've never liked the Total War games. We could do for a good Star Wars RTS. We had a couple decades ago. And it's so crazy to me that Petroglyph / Westwood, the company that made Command & Conquer, one of my favorite games of all time, made Empire at War, Star Wars RTS, and I didn't like it. A lot of times in RTSs, if they pull back and make it more general, like, okay, there's this army here, there's this army here, and then, when it's more of that grander strategy, it's not as fun to me as it is being down on the ground, clicking individual units, having to figure out, okay, what is he doing when I have to figure out what this guy's doing, and then I have to figure out my resources. That's the gameplay loop I like, and that's not necessarily in the Total War games. It's more of like managing your armies rather than tactical combat. But I think more people prefer the grand strategy, the larger, bigger picture games. So that's probably what's going to happen here. I'd still like to check it out. Because it's something I've always wanted, and the time when I was most into Star Wars, they never did it. So it's interesting. It's really interesting what they come up with and don't come up with. Gummer. That's a good idea, actually. No, but Summer Game Fest 2024 partner lineup revealed. What would a Gummer same fest be? No, I'm joking. So yeah, this is the E3. This is the E3 now that E3's gone. So I'm excited about that. I mean, they're going to reveal stuff. It'll be cool. GTA 5 sales hit 200 million. Red Dead Redemption sales top 64 million. 64 million is a lot, but it is crazy how much that's not compared to 200 million. I don't know if that made sense, but that's crazy. And I didn't really like Red Dead Redemption 2. Okay. Senua's Saga Hellblade achievement list. Only 11. That's interesting. Yeah, can't wait to hear about that game. Let's see. Airship Syndicate's Wayfinder shifting from free-to-play online. Oh, yeah, that's right. I heard about that yesterday. And that's interesting. Game shifting from free-to-play to being... like, you pay once, you get the game, but you get everything. You don't have to, there's no microtransactions. So I wonder if for some games it's better to go in that direction. because, especially with a video game, I feel like there's this approach where it's like, okay, let's make this game where anyone would want to play. It's like this broad audience persona of like anyone with a console. Let's market this to them. But what if you could scale back and be like, let's make a game that people will feel like they'll want to pay for and have all access to, and we foster that community. We make word of mouth the strong point of spreading news on the game. And that stuff has worked in the past. And it works with movies. So it would be very interesting to see how that works. I don't even know about this game, Wayfinder. Have I heard of it and just not paid attention? I might need to check it out. I don't know. Games Aid has raised $150,000 for charity. You know what? Right before starting to do this daily, actually this started late last year, the whole thing with the completionist, that charity fraud, and then like looking into how common charity fraud could be, especially if you are sending money to another party to donate. And it makes me think whenever there's some donations being taken for something, I look, okay, am I going directly to the people that need the donations, or is it going through someone? I'm always scared about this stuff. So, they show this, and, and it makes me think, like, how much is this really going to help people? Because after that, the expose on the completionist, there was more of other people that do charity scams, and it's so common. It's scary. Let's see. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Shrouded Fable is coming in August. Oh, is it DLC? Wow. Let's see. Dauntless and Fae Farm Studio Phoenix Labs confirms layoffs and game cancellations. Yeah, Dauntless was something I played in its beta or whatever, and it was interesting because it seemed cool, but I was like, but this just seems like any other game just mashed together, which that's what a lot of these games out there are anyway. But what I'm saying is that's where it's like, I could see why maybe games are not, working out, or, yeah, they have to change things. Okay. So interesting there. Yeah, because I've heard both of these, and they're different types of games, but they both... So, like, Phoenix Labs seems like a really cool developer to watch out for. They got caught up in this, but I guess, 140 people impacted. But, and this is in Canada, so it's not like this is U.S. regulations on, how companies operate that's affecting this. This is just another country in the world where this is happening. Hopefully they recover from that. Let's see here. Some more layoffs. Yep. I guess Take-Two not shutting down. So here's news. Someone hasn't laid off someone. That's funny. That's literally what the news is trying to say. Dang. That's really all the news is people are just talking about that Grand Theft Auto 6 launches in fall 2025 for PS5 and Series XS. Yeah, I'll wait for more news. It's going to be crazy around that time. What hardware is out, what hardware, Sony and Microsoft will have. Borderlands 4, would I play that? They would have to make it a huge different game. 2K will reveal a sequel to one of its biggest and most beloved franchise next month. Okay. Coincidence? Probably Borderlands 4. Especially with that movie around the corner. Let's see. Okay, well, while this news seems to be a bit boring, I'm going to jump to some other stuff I grabbed. Let's see. Okay, layoffs, studio closures could signal bottom for video game stocks. So I know we've been talking about layoffs, and it's like one of those things where we can just talk about forever. I'm curious on this level of what's going on. So layoffs, studio closures at the major video game publishers could mark a bottom for video game stocks, analysts say, after a rough couple of years post-pandemic. Electronic Arts, Microsoft, and Take-Two, and others are taking actions to focus their operation on what's working. So yeah, post-pandemic. This is the thing. It's been a rough couple of years post-pandemic. And yeah, everyone is taking actions to focus on what's working. I mean, if you look at the changes companies are making where they're canceling games that are maybe just in development or starting development, streamlining studios, supporting games that are already working. I mean, that's probably the safer thing to do right now than to be like, oh man, I don't know what to do. Let's just take a risk. I mean, that's worse, I guess, for the livelihood of people working at your company than if you're to play it safe. Sure, maybe playing it safe means you have to lay off some people, but that's, and again, whether it's, I hate that companies have to do that, but I have been laid off multiple times. It's like, it's a thing that just happens, and I don't know if maybe, not saying that you should be used to it, but I just got used to it, and I've always just positioned myself to try to be able to get another job. And again, that's the thing. In Japan, you're not allowed to lay off. So, it's just, but then again, the U.S., economy, the market, companies do so well here, but it's almost like, well, to a point to where then they're doing so good, and it's like, okay, well, maybe that's a little too much, and we could help out other people. Because honestly, money could be better managed in this world. I just don't have the power to make that change. Cost cutting is always reactive. Pactor, yeah, he's a good source for that stuff. So yeah, they're pretty much saying it. It's like, it feels like a general reset, lower on development and the number of games produced. There's a lot of emphasis in focusing on the key titles. Yeah, so game developers are going to be playing it safe for a long time, or the publishers at least. The publishers that are banking on a lot of money, that have to be beholden to stockholders. They're the ones going to be playing it safe. Okay. Let's see. This is Ghostbusters gets a new fan-made video game for the Commodore 64. I always find that interesting because I feel like people that are doing this, potentially, and I could be wrong, are older than me. Just because I didn't grow up with a Commodore 64. That was a little before my time, although it could have creeped up, but yeah, it never did. Because, by the time you could get, like, let's see, I was PC gaming before I was console gaming. That was because of my dad. So my dad always had, like, work PCs that could play games. There was just no reason to get a Commodore 64. But it would have been cool. Yeah, very neat to see that. We see that every once in a while where they do these kind of like demakes or these ports or just, game on an older console. I remember playing a couple of the Ghostbuster games that were out back in the day, mainly on PC. There was that Ghostbusters 2 on PC that was like super hard. I don't think I ever beat it or I got far. I don't remember. Okay. What was the other news that I wanted to bring up? Oh, yeah. Check this out. Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers. And I'm like, what? What is this? And, oh, that's very cool because they make this look old. So what this is it looks like if, while there was Sonic Drift, it seems like if Sonic got a proper kart racing game on, like, the Sega Saturn, that's kind of how I see this. Kind of like how the N64 had Mario Kart, the Saturn would have this Ring Racers, and it looks really cool. And I'll probably download it and play it later. Because, yeah, if you go to the website, it's kartcrew.com. And, yeah, you can play it on PC. Let's see, what does more downloads signify? Okay, they're just some stuff. I usually get lost when I look at these GitHub pages. Anyway, this looks cool. And when I was looking at this and getting some info, I also came across a Saturn game. I forget what it's called. It's a fan-made Sonic game where they kind of take the color palette of Knuckles Chaotix on 32X because that's 32-bit, and like expanded it to be like, what would a 2D side-scrolling Sonic game look like on the Sega Saturn? And man, it brought me back to like how crazy, or I feel like something happened in our timeline, because Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles comes out, and then, you know, when the Sega Saturn comes out and the N64 is like, there's no new Sonic game on the Saturn, but N64 has a new Mario, so I bought an N64. And I think they messed up by not having the Sega Saturn release with like Sonic 4, Sonic 5, because I always thought of, you know, Sonic and Knuckles as 4, but then a real Sonic 4 came out. But they really should have had a mainline Sonic side-scroller, just with these extra graphics looking great. And I know it's not 3D, but, you know, I don't know. And maybe that was the issue. They were like, well, 3D is the rage. And it's funny. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Electric Playground. It's a Canadian video game news show run by Victor Lucas. He started it in the 90s, and then it went to like G4. So then in the US, you would see it if you were watching G4 and stuff. But anyway, he was talking about, he was able to pitch Electronic Playground, the show, because when PlayStation came out, it was like, okay, graphics are now 3D and cutting edge. And the pitch was it would be a show about 3D gaming. 3D gaming. And he even said he kind of regrets, maybe the strong word, but he can look back and see where they weren't focusing on 2D anymore. And he kind of wishes they were. But that was a time where like 3D was a bigger thing, the cooler thing. You would get into 3D. People would play 3D games even if they didn't feel good, but it's because they looked pretty incredible for the time. That's why a lot of games in that time period don't transfer well. And I was thinking about this the other day too. Like on the N64, there's a lot of amazing games. They don't all play well. Like Mario 64 plays well. GoldenEye plays well. I'm sure there's a few more. But anything that's like a full 3D game, like the older controls, that's why you have Resident Evil over the years have evolved their controls, you know. Ultronymous, RIP Sonic 3D Blast. Don't think anyone really enjoyed that one. Yeah, it was a cool concept. And it was interesting that they decided to do the 3D via 2D. And I wonder if that was more like, well, we can make our graphics look 3D, and so they went that way. Or to be honest, I mean, it had a cool gameplay loop. It's just not what I want when I want to play Sonic, but it was kind of a neat idea. Yeah, I don't know. So I'm gonna have to check this out later. This looks really cool to me. But okay, I think that just about does it then for this Friday morning edition of the BlueGamer Bluecast morning show. Not too much crazy news going on. I think this, some of the fan-made stuff, I think, is what seems to be the most exciting to jump into this weekend, at least for me. Let me know in the comments what you're going to be playing this weekend, and it'll be interesting come around Monday what I have. Again, I think Monday's like my favorite time to talk because of everything I got into over the weekend. So anyway, all have a good rest of the day, good weekend, and we will talk later.